Hi, my name is Victoria English, and I'm here today with the founders of Puptqe. So, if you'd like to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your business.
Well, I'm Slava, one of the co-founders of Puptqe.
And I'm Courtney, the other co-founder of Puptqe, and we are a husband and wife duo. And a little bit about Puptqe. So we started this back in 2023. We are a retail boutique dog experience, and I'll let you continue.
Yeah, I mean the story really morphed from our dog Champ, who's a Kishuken. It's a purebred Japanese breed, which is a national monument over there. But basically, he got really sick, and we didn't know what was wrong with him. So we went to four different veterinarians, four different diagnoses, and then got to a point where he was eating, drinking, and he was essentially dying. We finally took him to the last vet. He got diagnosed with Addison's and he flatlined for a full minute. Thankfully, he was revived, and he was at the hospital for four days. And then we found out, and there's preventative now, things he's taking from pills to shots every single month. But it really got us inspired. Like, what can we do? And where can we also share the bond that we have with our dog? Because it's special, they're part of the family. With other owners, it's not just us that feel that this connection spiritually, physically, how much they provide for us, emotionally. And Courtney decided to, well, let's celebrate and let's just open an online shop. And the online shop was more hobby driven, like let's sell T-shirts, Kishuken dad, Kishuken mom, whatever it might be. And we had people from all over the country. The first order I think came from New York. They're like, "Hey, this is great. We love this." So fast forward, it was just trotting a year down where we're like, whatever, let's just add a little bit more products, and the online product line got added, and then we got married in Hawaii. um, and one of the things where we wanted to do a brick and mortar, but there's obviously, as a business owner or just not anybody else, there's a lot of risks, especially in the media, how risky it is in brick and mortar and how it's all going online and Amazon's killing those businesses. So when we got married, one of the announcements we made at the wedding was, 9 months, we have a surprise, and obviously everyone thought it was going to be a baby, which we'd love to. But we opened the first brick and mortar 9 months later in Temecula, California. That was in 2023 of November. Fast forward today, we had the opportunity and blessed, to get Pet Retailer of the Year. Thankfully to the communities and across the nation where people voted. And then now officially franchised in California. So it's a long journey, and there's a lot of stuff in between the valleys that we didn't discuss, and I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to understand that, or anybody who's starting a business. But that's kind of where we're at today and how we arrived.
That's so cool. And so, I was looking at your website. It says that Puptqe is more than retail. So, what would you say makes you fundamentally different from traditional retail versus your business?
So we're leading by experience and hospitality. And as soon as you walk into a Puptqe brick and mortar, you feel it from just, of course, the visual aspect, but from the get-go, the greeting, the hospitality. We were lucky to have training from the Ritz-Carlton, as well as some other companies that help train our employees to offer that hospitality aspect, but that's what makes us different, as well as the community aspect. We've built a membership to build a community around another community. So we have strangers who literally have become friends because they've met within our four walls.
Well, I think the best way to look at retail and the new phase of retail, it's not being demolished by e-commerce, where 70% of all shopping still happens physically. We're biologically connected to one another. I don't care what you say. Malls are still going to be alive. Movie theaters are just being repositioned. So what we believe is retailment, or however, retail with entertainment. So what we've done is weaved entertainment, commerce, and community together into one, and made it fun, not too novel. And we just layered a membership model, which some retailers have it, some don't. And we have three different tiers in that membership, and still open to the public. And we took it where the shopping experience has nothing to do with the commerce. It has to do with the gathering place of community with events. We happen to have the world's best products when it comes to dogs, But our biggest thing is to celebrate the reason why your dog exists, celebrate the bond you have with your dog. So that type of why, leading with why we exist, not what, which most retailers lead with what and then how they do it. And it's quite frankly over consumerism now. People want to be connected to a brand the same way they want to be connected to a community, to family members, to friends. So that's kind of the premise of the brand. It's just taking entertainment, taking retail and community and weaving it all together. And that's the future of retail, by the way. I think that's where retail has to go, and it is already going, the successful ones.
So I'm a first time customer and I'm walking through the door for the first time. Can you kind of like walk me through what my experience is going to be like?
So one of the cool things you could do prior to even going on there, even on the website, we have something where you have a virtual tour and you could guide yourself through it. But besides that, the first thing you come in, we have an entire hospitality. It took us about 3.5 years to put this together, that we worked with the Ritz-Carlton in Los Angeles with. And the hospitality is really geared towards, it's very rare in hospitality you have, or in retail you have great hospitality. It's all so commerce driven that they forget that they think they put the customer at the center, but they actually don't. They put themselves. So you always see brands, it's always about them. It's we, instead of the customer's like, I'm here, hi. So basically, I mean, and that goes through everything else. One of the big, key performance indicator we have is value per impression. So the first thing you walk into the door, even before you even walk in the door, you could do a virtual tour. But when you walk in the door physically, you get the experiences. You get greeted with a warm welcome to Puptqe. And that's really designed to, everyone's coming from different backgrounds. We don't know, the work issues, marital issues, whatever it might be. That's a really oasis, and that's to lift your spirit. And the acknowledgement that there's a human being that took time out of their day and came into the store. That's the number one thing we treat as a greeting, is the most important thing. You have 5 seconds to make not just a good impression, but just an impression that there's a human being. And therefore, we start the discovery phase. We have the world's first pup bar. If you do come with your dog or without your dog, we have a rotating pup cup menu. Every week, we have different pup cups to change, and we name a member. Every week, we do a specialized formulated pup cup for them. And it's totally complimentary and free. Bring your pup in. Believe it or not, we have humans sometimes want to taste it. Weird. And then, once you're there, and it's just, you pause. We have, after you get your pup cup, you turn around, and right behind you is a photo booth that changes every single month with different themes. We have a Polaroid. You take the picture, you could take it home with you, or you could put it on our star wall, our community wall, where you could come back and revisit that memory. And then you go through and get anything you or your dog's heart desires. And then that just basically, there's so many different elements. We have the ball pit. But the idea is when you come in is to get the feeling of a micro moment of Disneyland without the massive cost of a $200 ticket and plus. So, and that's really what we see is how we connect and be a vessel for the community. And we do it through the physical store.
That's wonderful. And you mentioned hospitality a few times now. Did one or both of you work in the hospitality industry?
Well, I think we're in the hospitality every single day. So my background, I worked with another franchisor in 2012, and they were still early on, but they were in the frozen yogurt space, and they were growing really fast. And it was really geared towards hospitality. But it wasn't really mainstream, right? Hospitality, when it comes to quick service restaurants, restaurant retail, they think if I just provide the product, they'll come, which has some truth to it. But I think hospitality is what will sustain you in the long term, and what people keep coming back for, because people want to be seen and heard. That's just the bottom line. It doesn't matter who you are. If you walk into a retail or even e-commerce, right? If you don't get a response back, or if someone provides something damaged and you don't get a return or proper communication, you're not heard, and it feels like you're not seen. But in retail, more than ever, is we have to look at it. We are entertainers in a way. We are, because we're shooting a commercial every single time we're interacting with the customer. But I think the hospitality side of it is a retention tool as well. And either you have it or you don't. There's not a middle ground. I think just like we have a K-shaped economy going up, where you're seeing lower end brands, Dollar Tree, Dollar Generals, and so forth, being successful in convenience, and then the K-shaped economy, ultra luxury, that are extremely successful, but everything in the middle is kind of being carved out. The same thing goes for hospitality. Either you're going to have low end and I just need something quick at Walmart, or you're going to go there because you like it there. It's a great experience and you feel uplifted when you're in the store.
So pulling back, I mean, as far as the hospitality aspect and adding to what Slava had said, I'm originally from Hawaii, and if you've been to Hawaii, you
Every year.
Oh, that's great. Okay, you may have experienced just the culture and the people, and when you're there, just the hospitality across the board. You could go to a local grocery store, you could shop at a convenience store, or just a small boutique, or even a big chain. But that sense of hospitality and that greeting, whether you're a local or a tourist, is almost the same across the board, no matter the tier of where you're shopping. So I think that hospitality and what Slava and I had talked about from the beginning and bringing Puptqe to life was that we wanted to create something that had that sense of community, but people felt like they were heard, seen, as well as they felt a part of something. And that sense of ohana, as we go back to my upbringing, when you walk in, is what you feel and what you see when you're in community events and everything else. And bridging the gap over the years, we've had the opportunity to stay at hotels across the country that had that level of service and hospitality, and we were like, you know what, there's nothing like this in the pet space, let's bring it to the pet space.
Well, one of the things in the pet industry and in retail as a whole, it's so fragmented in a sense of it's all driven by it's all transactional, right? If you need something for your dog, you come into Petco or local store. Sure, there might be some knowledge base and they guide you to the right place, but it's all just transactional. And what we learned is, when it comes to pets, it's not transactional. It's not just emotional. It's a bond that they share with us for a really short period of time. 15 years if we're lucky. So for us, we said, what can we do to capture those micro moments? It could be through a Polaroid, through a Pup Cup, through a membership event, which we have over 100 a year that we do, from paint and sips and so forth, bingo night, trivia night. So I think hospitality on the onset, if someone's hearing this, sounds really simple. Well, just be nice, be hospitable, be kind. But how do you do that consistently, right? For years and years to come, and do it authentically, that you actually cared. And we are continuously learning from customers, brands that are successful, unsuccessful. I think it's developing a process, understanding the process, and bringing the right people on the bus. People say, well, this could be replicated. 100%. And we encourage it to be replicated. That means we're serving our purpose, why we exist, right? And there's so much room in the space, right? It's still growing so fast. And I think as, looking at statistically, as the birth rate continues to decline, not just in America, worldwide. First, there's inflationary things in there. There's cost of living. There's multiple reasons why. There's different podcasts for that we could do. But I think we're realizing the benefit pets have, and dogs being the most popular ones. People don't realize really quick that people with dogs live the mortality rate is 33%. Your mortality rate decreases. So essentially you're living much longer with the dog because you're walking. There's an emotional support. There's even a spiritual element to it as well. But that's what the hospitality side is, and we see it day in, day out. And we make a lot of mistakes, don't get me wrong, but our goal is through training and consistently evolving that and speaking to the community that we're more than just a transaction. That's the most important. It's community first, commerce second.
And it sounded like your business, I was looking, has maybe 4 different pillars, which would be like the retail, events, experiences, memberships. I saw you guys have parties on your site. Can you talk to me a little bit about the kind of events that you do?
Yeah, so we do have, like you mentioned, we have an omni-channel business model. So it's not just memberships or events or retail, but we do have retail brick and mortar as well as e-commerce. But as far as events go, we have so many depending on the month, and it's all surrounded by that connection you have with your dog. So we have paint and sips, we have pack walks, we have a lot of vendor events, we have rescue events, and then we have anything, like most recently we did DIY collar resin keychains. We have our 3rd annual Oscars event coming up in March, which is one of my favorite personal events, and we have Easter egg hunt, and I'm just going down the list of everything that we've done and celebrating some of the big holidays. But everything is around spending time with your dog, as well as other like-minded individuals, and that's what makes the event so special.
So how many years ago did you start Puptqe?
So we started in 2023. So our dog was diagnosed with Addison's in 2022, and that's when Slava had mentioned that we just on the whim decided, let's just open up a brick and mortar. So we've been in business with our brick and mortar since November of 2023.
And how would you describe what it looked like then versus what it looks like now?
It's
Well,
changed a lot. I can
I,
tell you that.
I think some. I think one of the important things to know, and this is for any brand or any business owner starting. I think the foundational blocks will never change our core values and why we exist, and we speak about this every single Sunday that we have training with our team. Obviously, the visual side, the processes a little bit have changed, but why we exist is to celebrate the special bond you have with your dog. That's our purpose, and it's all guided by our core values. I think that was from the very inception. There's been some minor changes just from the verbiage standpoint and how it's being communicated, but I think the biggest thing, the transformation obviously happened from the membership model change into events, for us making a ton of mistakes, listening to the customers, listening too much for the customers, like maybe 1% of the customers are saying we want this and we get it, and it's only for that customer, and we have a bunch of inventory left. So I think the change happens as you evolve and organically and grow. But I think the biggest thing I take away is the only thing to push forward when you're going to have so many challenges, ups and downs in businesses, is why do you exist? I mean, I think that's the most important. And we talk about, all the time. I write it down every morning. It's like, why does Puptqe exist? And if I can't answer that question or it gets fuzzy, we have to go back to the foundational blocks. So
That makes a lot of sense. You've mentioned several times your team members. So, what is your process for finding these really awesome people for your team?
So we were grateful during our initial interviews, to hire people that have been with us from the very beginning. So in retail, it's rare to find people who start with you from the very beginning and stay with you over the course of the year. But we also offer opportunities for growth. So those same people have seen and supported the vision from the very beginning, and they've seen that vision, and they've grown along the way. But as far as finding the right candidates, early on, you don't know. You really don't know, because as you're opening up your first brick and mortar, and you're new to the retail space, you don't know what type of candidates are the best to fit the customer base in that market. But now that we've been in business for 2.5 years, we look for certain qualities in our employees that we do bring on. One, it's the trust and respect each other. That's one of our core values. But also the sense of urgency, as well as eager to grow. I think that's the thing, that they're coachable, as well as they're willing to want to learn and adapt, and they'll also be able to provide feedback to help the company grow as well.
Well, I think one of the things that's happening in the marketplace now, and it has for the last 5 years, is a lot of employers are like, well, the Gen Z don't want to work, or they segment a group of people, right, in the marketplace. But I think that really happens is everybody has a skill set and talent you could pull out. And Gen Z, all of our employees are Gen Z now in the store. And before it was a mix, and it wasn't by design or anything like that, but it's very difficult when you take a step back, and it goes back to my original thing, is why you exist, to celebrate the bond you have with your dog. Everybody has something special they have to offer, but we created a process. We have an entire, you could call it an experience Bible, a hospitality guide of 70 pages. And if you follow that process and you believe that you're actually, not just believe, you're engulfing yourself, that you're serving that community, great things happen when you put the customer at the center, not yourself. So we always, when we get to, competitiveness is good internally, but once you get, it's all about me. It's all about my revenue numbers. It's all about my membership, how many memberships I signed up. Critical and important, but we always go back to the team, because, and that's more important than ever before. And that's how you find great, I think, to find great team members, first you have to have a clear purpose. You have to have a clear process and not deviate from that. And I think and then if people don't want to join that fire, so to speak, they'll come. And hiring, and some people, they're not the right fit for that bus. That's okay. Like Jim Collins says, getting the right people on the bus. And not everyone's going to be a fit, and that's okay. And they're going to be successful somewhere else, and they're going to thrive. And I think our ultimate goal is hiring employees is to make sure they're in our care. Either they're with us or they leave somewhere else, and they're extremely successful, and they learn from that. I think a lot of employers are like, what if I train them and then they leave? Well, what if you train them and they stay and they grow and they're successful and they train someone else? So I think the overall corporate mentality right now is kind of backwards. And we're putting an emphasis on the wrong things instead of we're human beings. We have so much talent and we have so much different gifts. All of us have. We just need to take time. And trust me, for me, it's sometimes frustrating. I'm like, I don't get this generation, I don't get that. But they're so talented in other ways, from the creativity side, for being honest, and the millennial and Gen X, we're like grind, hustle, hustle, hustle. They're like, hey, honestly, I can't give my 100% today. Therefore, I'm not going to deliver on the floor successfully, and it's going to hinder the entire community, entire team. I rather, and that transparency is important, even though it's frustrating. But going back to that question, I think we need to really understand why going back to it, and it's very repetitive. The why is so important, and finding the people that really understand that.
So you just mentioned something that I think is a common problem for a lot of employers right now, which is, they're calling and saying, hey, I don't think I can do 100% on the floor today. And I'm kind of inferring from that maybe they don't come to work that day. Are you noticing with that population of employees attendance issues that you don't see with employees of other generations?
So we have experienced that, especially over the last couple of years. And being in the retail business, it's always changing, right? And now we've put processes in place, and we've opened that open communication and dialogue to have them communicate that. As we like to say, we rather have them be able to express themselves, be able to be transparent, and then we can always have another employee cover, so that we're giving the best experience for the customer. Because at the end of the day, we don't want our customers to have a bad experience because of someone having a bad day. So it's really trying to find the balance, and I think more so over the last 6 months, we've worked to finding that balance and how to communicate, how to get coverage, how to address situations that may happen just like this.
Well, I think a lot of brands have it. They know that the people who are serving the customer are critical and important. They say it, they write it down, they have podcasts about it, but when it comes to doing it, when it's hard, they put the customer at the center and they put the employee aside, right? They might not do the training and everything else, but at the end of the day, we have this thing, Courtney mentioned the process. We have 2 personal processes that go off on the hour every hour. And the personal processes before even getting to the customer journey are BFF, belief, freedom, or focus and freedom. Do you believe what separates you to be the best? Do you have heightened awareness in the present moment? And you have the freedom to take bold risks on the floor, which comes from the Ritz-Carlton model, where they have up to $2,000 to spend per day. Not that they have that in the retail store, but that's where it got taken from. And then the second personal process we have is the F4. And the F4, it goes through, am I grateful today? Am I 100% present? Am I focusing on what I can control and what my routines are? Am I giving my 100%? So, and that goes off on the hour, because in retail, you might have a difficult customer, nasty customer. You might have, and you might be going through something. So we have literally dings for them. Hey, take a minute, breathe, go through your personal process, and then get to the customer journey, which we have another process for that. Hospitality, and then all the way community. So we have 5 processes the way they're broken down, and we train this day in, day out, day in, day out.
And now we're at the point where, and this is for other employers too who are experiencing this, when you have open communication with your employees and you make it a space where they feel comfortable, and then you put in the processes to help with that, it helps a lot. One of the issues that we were experiencing was that people would come in and say, I'm having a bad day, I can't be here for the rest of the day. But now that procedure is we have little benchmarks like 24 hours in advance, 8 hours. And as a small business, it's some of the things that we kind of overlook when you're opening something and you're so excited about. But having that communication and that standard from the very beginning and being able for the employees to communicate with each other, that's a really important thing too, to make them feel comfortable, because sometimes there's a disconnect around employees, but everything now we do is around communication, transparent communication, as well as like the building blocks to help the team. So everything is like team oriented, to help it. And having them, one thing about Gen Z generation is that they're very motivated by supporting each other, supporting a mission, supporting like a goal, and really working together towards that goal. So I think now we found that medium of what they're motivated by, and I think that's a really important thing too.
And I think any business owner starting off, and even for us, we reiterate this, a lot of them say they have standards, but you don't have standards. What I mean by that is, setting the expectation of here's a zero tolerance policy no matter what, and we're here to support, and not just implementing something, but here's why it's a zero tolerance policy, because you're letting down your teammate, you're letting ultimately down the community, and you're affecting everyone's livelihoods, because you are. If you don't follow the process, you show up late at half an hour to work, well, you just affected the entire team, right? Not being there, so I think those things are really, really, really important, is, going back to the why, your core values, setting the standards, and some people's standards are low, some are high, but knowing what's tolerated, 100% what's not. And it's not from a militaristic standpoint. I think when people are thinking like, okay, this is a standard, but just saying, here's what we expect to be the pet retailer of the year, not because of us. It's because implementing, listening to the customers, implementing processes in place, and having a high standard. Forget about Puptqe for ourselves first. So.
And you'll what's actually really great was that they understood that, because they wanted to be a part of something, but not only that, they wanted to not let employees or each other down. That's a huge part of this generation, is that they want to support each other and what they're driven by. And having them each have a certain responsibility that's completely a part of the team made so much of a difference. And that's something to give advice to business owners out there who do have a variety of different employees and different ages, is that when you give a certain responsibility to an employee and they feel invested and needed, it makes that much of a difference. Mm-hmm.
It sounds like team building is a really important part of your business model. You're talking about everyone depending on each other and each having a role. And do you implement any kind of team building exercises as part of running your business?
Yes, every Sunday we meet as a team, 9:45 a.m. every single Sunday. We don't miss a beat unless it's a holiday. And what that does is it brings the team together, and we have training. We also do games, so they're engaged. We have so many different processes along the way, and a different focus for every week. We have a focus for every month, as well as goals for every week. That the team working together is very involved with that process, and we do role playing, we do coaching, they have feedback, we bounce ideas off of each other, we have a roadblock and feedback sheet that at the end of the week we all go through everything. They provide each other what they could have said better or what they could have done better. So now it's become more of a collaboration rather than just singling out, this is the manager and this is the boss, and these are the employees, whereas now we're having open dialogue and we're working together to try to work through the roadblocks, work through ideas, put new events on the table.
Well, I think the biggest thing what you just said is a lot of businesses, they talk about training openly. They say, oh, we do training. It might be they have some sort of catalog of videos, or it might be some materials, and that's it. And the employee kind of does it on their own. They might do it once a month or once a quarter. This is our bedrock of everything that's built on. So the training, yes, it's on Sundays every single day. This is for all small businesses. People say, well, I don't have the staff to do role play and everything else. We figure out how to solve that problem as well. We do every single, at 9:45 to about 10:15, we have a daily stand-up call with ourselves or somebody else or the manager that says, just check in. How are you? What are you focusing on today? How can I assist? How can I help? So always having that connection. So when people say, I can't do that because I can't be in the store all the time, totally fine. And then the other training mechanism we just implemented is live shopping through What's Not. So what we figured out, there's 3 benefits to it. A, exposure to the brand, free marketing, we get to go through it. A revenue generation where you could sell products. We do it in store, by the way, the live shopping. And the third thing, which is so awesome, is the training. It records the whole thing for you. You, as a team member, and everyone does live shopping on our team, gets to analyze it just like a team does, right? A sports team, and looks at where they could improve, where it's, oh, I shouldn't have said that, as well as the manager and ourselves could go through it and just say, dive into it together. So there's so many, with technology now, you could amplify hospitality so much more so when now day and age I see training being almost like thrown aside as an afterthought, where it should be exonerated and lifted up as the main thing, because that's what's going to drive everything else forward. So yeah, it's really exciting.
So you mentioned not everyone might know what the live shopping experience is. So could you explain like exactly what
Yeah.
that is and how that works?
So think of and I'll think of TikTok Shop, but we use What's Not. So it's basically a live shopping application. I'll let Courtney jump into a little bit more, but it's an interactive social community that you build. You could bid on products. You could buy it directly, immediately, like an eBay, but on steroids, with social media implemented with comments and things of that nature. So we sell our actual products from that, and we have people from all over the world jumping onto our live feed, and we do it in the store. So we show the store, the girls will go through, and maybe they're struggling on how to sell a pup pass, or they're having challenges in the greeting. So that gives them an opportunity to, with the customer, obviously they can't see them, to almost role play there in real time and get feedback, because it's being recorded as well for them to go back. So Courtney could go in a little bit more specifically on What's Not, but that's just a live shopping experience. It's not new, but it's been around for a while, but it's becoming on the forefront now.
Yeah, we started this back in 2024, and we only did it like during the holidays as well as during just seasonal times. But now we've implemented it in our training plan. So live shopping, similar. Are you familiar with TikTok live shopping?
I'm not.
Okay, so basically, it's you could go on, and this is Whatnot is specifically for shopping. So anyone who goes on there is either a buyer or seller, and you could sell pretty much anything. But for us, it's specifically pet related, and we take that opportunity to create a live shopping show. We do 3 every week. Every employee has an opportunity to do one, and we do different types of shows. But what's the most important part of this, beyond just generating extra revenue for the store, it's like, as Slava had mentioned, a marketing opportunity. So you are role playing what we've learned during in the meetings. You're giving tours of the store, you're showing the photo booth, you're showing the dog bar, you're asking people what kind of dogs they have, what they love doing with their dogs, you're showing them, what treats we may have if they have allergies. We're also being a resource, an educational resource in the space for people who have questions about their dog, what treats that they could eat or what toys they recommend, just from our knowledge base. And we spread the word, and it's great because we are able to meet people from New York, Washington, Florida, but all across the country, and interact with them in a different way. And they don't have to shop with us or step in our brick and mortar store to experience Puptqe. So they still get that same experience, that tour when they walk, when they tune in, and they could just ask questions and see what's it's all about.
Well, one of the reasons, bigger things, the problem we ran into is obviously when it's slower during the week on brick and mortars, and it is sometimes. Say from
Most business, yeah.
Yeah, from say 10 a.m. on a Monday or a Tuesday to 2 p.m. you have two or three customers that you see, and it's how do you stay motivated? How do you stay inspired? And I get that, right? It's it doesn't matter what kind of robust process you have, and we're in a shopping mall, which gets a decent amount of foot traffic there. But that being said, it's one of those things. One of our processes we have is the customer journey, what we call a super. Surprise, unique, personalized, engaging, and repeating that. And sometimes the engagement portion is not always there. And this is where the What's Not comes in, and constantly being prepared and ready for all opportunities to arise. Because it's really hard. Like, I've been into where it's just like I haven't seen somebody for half an hour and someone comes in to just be perky and ready to go and to serve, and be alive, so to speak. So, yeah. But I think more importantly than anything else, for everybody to reiterate this, that says we don't have the resources to do training now day and age. This is free, by the way. It's a revenue generation, it's a marketing tool, and it's a phenomenal training mechanism that you have live feedback, especially if you're a forward-facing, a QSR, a quick service restaurant, a fast casual restaurant, a retailer. Most any businesses could implement something like this, regardless if you make any sales or not. There's so much benefit to that. And if more companies took training more seriously and put it at the forefront, not at the back end of their priorities, you would see so much businesses thriving instead of complaining about the economy, inflation. Look, we all deal with that, but how do we as a community come together and figure it out? I think that's more critical and important than ever.
So this sounds great. You have so many systems as in place. So that gives people potentially the opportunity to be more of an owner than an operator then because of how many systems you have, or are specifically people that would buy one of your franchises be very much owner operators?
So the system is designed to be an owner operator, and you're going to have, we tell this all the time, you're going to be extremely more successful on sales, and you will be because you're going to be engraved in your community, at your Rotary clubs, and everywhere else if you're there every single day. But it's designed to be an absentee owner, and the reason why it's simple, it's scalable, but most importantly, it's fun. What I mean by that is, we designed the brand to go deeper, not wider. So if you look at a lot of pet boutiques or pet retailers or even pet franchises, they have 4 or 5 different businesses. They have the retail business, then they have the grooming business, then they have the training, then they have the boarding. So those businesses by themselves have a lot of complexities and a lot of risks involved, right? So for example, if a groomer, majority of them are 1099, they're not even W-2, a lot of these franchise companies, what if they do a poor job on the grooming, or God forbid, they injure the dog accidentally, and it happens all the time. All of a sudden, your retail business gets affected by one Yelp review, or Google review, or the community that spread. So, we intentionally, I always ask that question to people is, what would, you're in California, what would be your favorite burger place to eat, Victoria?
In and out.
So okay, what does In-N-Out serve chicken burgers or chicken sandwiches?
No, no, it's a very specialized menu.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
very not special. It's a very limited menu. Few
So
things
that's
done well.
so that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to be in a fragmented pet retail space, specifically dogs being the most popular. We wanted to be the leader in this category because this is a blue ocean and not complete in the bloody red ocean with everybody else for the same things. The
Hmm.
pet retail, when it comes to hospitality, where it's engaging, it's fun, it's community driven first, not commerce driven, because the commerce will happen organically. If you have a great time and a great experience, people want to help other people. They'll support the communities if they feel connected to the communities. That's naturally. So we wanted to go deeper in that space, and that's how where we were tempted to do grooming. Trust me, because the revenue is so great, and we could groom so many dogs, and boarding and training. But then we went back and said, what business are we in? If we want to provide the world-class hospitality, not just in pet retail, but in all of retail, we have to be the best in the world at the boutique pet space, but even further for dogs only. So specialized, and that's how we arrived here.
That's wonderful. Can you tell me a little bit about your customers? What are your customers like that come into your business?
Go ahead, Court.
We get to, so being that we're in Temecula, we have a wide range of customers coming from that Temecula Riverside area, and then we have people coming from San Diego, and then we also have people coming down from Los Angeles. But as far as the Puptqe customer base, it's mostly women who don't have children, and their dog is their primary child, or they're a couple who their kids are grown and their dog is their baby again. So that's really our ideal customer profile. People who are so ingrained in their life with their dog. They love to celebrate every moment with their dog. They like to do activities. They like to spend time with other like-minded individuals. So we do have a wide range of customers on the membership standpoint, where people shop with us just from the online store and they just buy our products. And then we have the other set of customers who are engulfed with the whole Puptqe model. So they attend events, they buy all the products, as well as there are advocates on social media and in the marketplace. So we do have that demographic of, and it's normally the woman ranging from 25 to 55 that have their dog, married or not.
But the cool thing is, they're not always our customer, but the appeal is, what we've seen is children come in and want to play in the doghouse, playing in the ball pit, dragging their moms in, come on in, even if they don't buy anything. But we have a metric we call value per impression. So if you come into the store, you have a great experience, you don't have to purchase anything. You leave and you tell 10 of your friends, or even 5 of your friends. For us, that's way more valuable than running any Instagram ad, by far. Mm-hmm. The same thing appeals through adults and senior citizens. We have people coming in just browsing around. They might not be our ideal customer profile, but they go and tell their friend. Like we had a potential franchisee that came in, and his daughter-in-law says, Dad, you have to come in and buy a franchise. And he's from Texas. He's like, what are you talking about, right? So I think the appeal is really, really exciting to go from children all the way to senior citizens, that type of appeal, which is fun. And everyone has different perspectives and different outlooks on the world, which is awesome.
What was the most, it could be positive or negative, but the most surprising thing you found about the customers now that you've been running your business a while?
I think one of the biggest things in retail we learned is listening 10 times more than speaking, and customers will tell you what they want, what they need. Sometimes in retail it goes back to, if you don't understand why you exist, it's always we, me. Look at what we have. Look what we have. Look at what membership we have. Look at the events we have. It's like, well, the customer just wants to tell you his story. He wants to say why he came in or about their dog. So I think the biggest learning thing and what we've seen is just listening authentically. And we're all still that's one of the hardest skill sets, I think, in any business, but specifically retail, because it's such a promotional business, right? In your face, from billboards to posters to Instagram. And if you look at those, the great brands, Apple and everything else, if you look at an Apple commercial on a billboard, all it has is a picture of a kid playing. It says, taken on an Apple phone. It doesn't say the megabytes or the pixels or anything else. And I think just as basic as that, looking at it, I think it's just listening to your customers, and we still haven't got that 100% right.
I think from my perspective, and what I'm really surprised with, is that a community can be built. And I was, because we're so engulfed and this is our business, we believe in everything that we do. But at the same time, going back 2.5 years ago, I would not have expected it to be where it's at now. I would not have expected a community to come together, people from all different walks of life to be a part of a membership, to become friends. And going back to what I said earlier, seeing strangers become friends, that's something I was really shocked to see. Not saying we didn't believe in ourselves, but just the fact that you never know what you can create that will bring people together, and having them be a part of something too, and making them feel a part of it. That's what really shocked me, and all the stories that we had someone get married because they met at a Puptqe event back in Memorial Day.
Oh, wow.
2004, we had an event, and one of our members, one of his other friends invited someone to come. They met at the event, and a year later they got married. And that's one of the many success stories in terms of customers meeting and becoming lifelong friends, in this case, partners.
Well, I think one of the things, as the AI race accelerates and everybody thinks we have to be digital and we could be disconnected from one another, I think, the brands that understand this, and people, the human connection is never going to go away. Biologically, people have to be around other people. It doesn't matter how much we try. And this is why you're seeing, I truly believe we're going to get out of this trance of over consumerism and e-commerce, and people are going to go back to being connected with people. Will e-commerce and technology help and accelerate that? 100%. We use technology to provide better hospitality, from our point of sale to our processes to our live shopping. We talked about it, but that's not the forefront. That's really for us the tailwind, and our headwind is just providing great hospitality and connecting with people, with real people, real problems, real situations, and figuring out how to work them together. Because the membership came from a member actually saying, you guys should do something, as a membership. This is right a month when we opened up. So it wasn't like something we decided to come up, this brainchild type of an idea. So I think those things happen when you're willing. And I'm not saying all advice is great, by the way. I think a lot of entrepreneurs listen like, well, I'm just going to listen to my customer implement it. That's not the best thing either. I think is listening, absorbing, having conversations, and trying different stuff. We've tried so many different stuff that doesn't work. I think 95% of the stuff that we tried didn't work. That's okay. I think the biggest thing is trying on a small scale before really setting out that cannonball, as betting the house on it. So, we tried, for example, the processes, the systems we implemented. We say, okay, now it's the time to franchise this business, because not from the expansion standpoint, which is important, but to spread the special bond we all share with our dogs nationwide in every community, because that's how powerful it is. It's not even, it's a human connection with their pets. I think now is more critical than ever, because we've lost that art of communication. We lost that art of connectivity. And I think we have the opportunity, and we've brought it back in Temecula, but bring this, like I said, everywhere, in every community. That's what's exciting.
So definitely one of the things about owning small business, you definitely try to do a lot of different things, and some things are going to work and some things aren't going to work. And I think it's really helpful to talk to other small business owners about, they have an idea, a customer has an idea. It's like, okay, this sounds like it's going to be fantastic. We're going to try this idea. You mentioned rolling it out in a smaller phase, but what do you do specifically to decide, this is a good one, we need to keep going with this? Or more importantly, sometimes, when do you know when the cutoff is where you're like, we're just not going to make it over the hump with this one, like we need to kill it? Like, how do you come to that decision?
I think it's a decision, and I don't think ideas ever get killed, right? So what we do is we bookmark them, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to do that. And all of a sudden, it could come back 2 years later, 3 years later. Right now, one of the things we wanted to do is a cookie box for dogs, 4 cookies, similar like you go to Crumble Cookies and you get 4 cookies in each one for $20. We were in the capacity to do that, but now and this was 3 years ago, you said, hey, look, this could be a great driver to the store, provides great value, and something we can implement. So I think when do you know? I think you push it to a point where you know where your resources are, time and capital, right? In any business. So when you reach that threshold, like, okay, I can't go any further because it's taken too much of my time, too much energy. Maybe I need to bookmark this and I'll come back. But I think always having an idea type of, it doesn't matter what format. It could be on, handwritten, or it could be on an email, but having those ideas in place. And some of them you could eliminate completely, and some of them like, ooh, remember we tried X, Y, and Z? This is the perfect time to implement this now. So I think that's the thing is, every entrepreneur knows their resources. And once you reach that threshold, I think bookmarking it and maybe it'll resurface.
I think early on we were saying yes to almost everything. And that was our learning curve. And the point where now we had to step back, do more of the bookmarking. But if something was a great idea that sparked that something could, help with whether customer acquisition or the sales or anything that aligns with our values, going back to the whole value aspect, we would implement. If it didn't work out within, the first 30 to 90 days, it was something that we had to just push under the rug because it was either a time or a resource matter. So that's how we kind of look at everything now moving forward. If it takes up too much time, or if it's a resource, which is a financial resource, and it doesn't align with our just timeline or agenda or even our values right now, then we'll push it off to when it could be a better timing.
But I think what Courtney said, and I think most entrepreneurs, and this is hard, they set core values, And they do it because they read a book or they heard someone else say it, and they refer it back to once a quarter, once a year. The core values are your guardrails, right? And every decision should be formulated. For one of our core values is customer obsession, exceptional service, and personalized service, right? Trust and respect each other, compete intensely and win. So those are our 4 pillars. So if we all of a sudden don't fall in any of those 4 pillars, we say back, well, these are our guardrails. We're outside of the guardrails, or we're not inside on the road. What do we need to get back on there? I think that's really, really important. The same thing with the mission. I think a lot of times where I see these mission statements where a mission is to be accomplished within the next 5 to 10 years, and even now with AI hopefully shorter, and then you reset the mission. I think I see all these crazy missions like we want to do X, Y, and Z, and it's just like really convoluted. I think having a clear mission, we want to be the #1 pet retailer with 600 outlets open in the next 10 years. And one of the vehicles we're doing that through is franchising. But I think it's so important is everything's built on that, and communicating with clarity why you exist. This is very repetitive in this podcast, but I think things become more clear, and it's really difficult because at times it's easy to say, oh, let's take this shortcut, or let's do this, or let's implement grooming, for example. It's like, well, why we exist to share that bond with your with your dog. Is it going to be diluted a little bit? And the question is yes, because we're not going to be able to service that as well. So I think it just, I think a lot of businesses now more than ever, not just right now in their core values, but having them as guardrails is so critical. I think without that, it's going to be it becomes challenging.
So you have a very specific goal, which is great, and it sounds like 600 outlets. Are you currently operating more than one outlet?
No, currently we have the one in Temecula, and we decided to use that as a flagship.
We just started franchising.
Yeah, so we start franchising in December of 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you're looking to do the franchise, are you looking to initially stay in any specific like geographic location? Like, are you looking to stay in California, something that would be easy for you to go visit as you're helping people to develop? Or you're like, you know what, really anywhere in the country would be great for us?
Well, the cool thing is the systems we built, they're simple and scalable. And our director of training, she just moved to Austin. She was the original OG, so to speak. She was our manager. She left to Austin with her husband. So she's located there, but we could anywhere in the country because the model is really straightforward. We don't have a restaurant. We're looking for spaces that are community driven, and we could get one of these open in less than about 90 days once the lease is signed. Really quick and swift. And one of the cool things is having a franchise background, and a lot of our leadership team has over 30 years experience in franchising collectively, and we opened up over 200 plus units in different categories from Potbelly to Menchie's to My Gyms. So we've seen what works, what doesn't work, how to select real estate, build, and we have a lot to learn, by the way, and with the marketplace will teach us as well. But I think that's what's exciting. I think the training mechanisms that we put in place, and something for their franchisees that's going to be mandatory. Every Sunday or every Monday, their manager or the franchisee is going to be required. That's part of our FDD, a franchise disclosure document that they have to do. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really, really simplified down that anyone could run, but you have to love people and you have to love dogs. Those are the simple qualifications you have to have. The rest could be taught,
When did you first have the idea? You were like, let's do a franchise.
I think the thing happened to be a franchise where we implemented the membership program, mm-hmm. and I thought, when you're too novel, it gets scary, right? The first, DVD player came out, or the first plasma TV came out, where people are paying thousands of dollars for it. People are like, ooh, I don't know, or the first cell phone, I don't know what this is. I'm going to wait to see. I think we didn't want to give that type of twist to the marketplace because, again, people wouldn't know how to react. So all we did is just take traditional retail people are familiar with, your typical vanilla ice cream, and we just added some different sprinkles, added maybe an organic cone, so to speak, which is the membership model, which is the events, and being community driven first.
I think before we won Pet Retailer of the Year, so it was just something that was out of the blue. But back in 2024, at the end of 2024, as we were starting to build momentum, we had plans and we were thinking about expanding on the corporate level. So let's just open a bunch of stores. But at that rate, you aren't able to expand to the point where you really truly believe that people can benefit from this type of community and as well as this type of retail. So we decided the fastest way to spread the vision and the mission is to franchise. So we had those talks at the end of 2024, and then closer to the middle of 2025, when we won Pet Retailer of the Year, we looked at each other and said, why not? This is, if there's no better time, it's right now. We could bring the community together. We have so many members already that we think will be able to even open up their own stores because they're so engulfed from the very beginning, back in December of 2023 and even January of 2024. We still have members from the very beginning. So why not use our platform that we already have and open stores with the community? And I mean, going back into really when we decided, that was kind of the timeline. And with Slava's experience in the franchise aspect, it was more so like, why not? There's no perfect timing. Let's just do it now. But that's really the turning point.
I think with franchising, you get people, owners as a franchisee, they're investing a lot of time and capital into this. The managers are still going to be committed following the process and everything else if you do a corporate source. But the franchisee is engulfed in that community, right? They're the ambassador, they're mayor of their town, so to speak. So that's their business, that's their baby. So what we see, there's going to be more connection, and it fits our brand significantly better when you have an owner, a great franchisee running that and being passionate than a manager. That's what I've experienced, what I've seen firsthand, and that's another reason why the franchise model made a lot more sense, because we're going to get more quality candidates being franchise owners than just a manager in each market.
I mean, ideally it would be great, especially for the first 5 to 10 franchisees that are the brand ambassadors, that are spreading the message, really passionate, not only passionate, but growing into the more entrepreneur mindset, and are also like a copy and paste of what we saw in our vision and how we wanted to bring community together, our love for our dog, and the love for sharing that love for our dog with the community and their dogs too. So that's really what, as we expand, yes, everyone along the lines it's gonna be like they love dogs, but really in the first 5 to 10, having that same synergy across the board, because they're gonna be our brand ambassadors in the marketplace.
Do you have an ideal? It sounds like maybe some of your current clients might be an ideal franchisee owner. If you were to if you could custom design the kind of person that might buy your franchise, what would they be like?
Well, I think the first thing is it goes back to, you have to be a dog lover and you have to be connected in your community. If you're an operational person or a finance person, you have to have a partner, somebody you bring that's forward facing. Because it's a very forward facing business. It's like Disneyland. If you have people there that are not greeting you, they're not always kind, even though they're great at what they do, it doesn't have the same experience or approach. So I think that's number one. The other thing is understanding that entrepreneurship is very challenging. It's very difficult having these expectations and standards. But the cool thing is, joining a franchise system, where else can you find a peer group? They're in the same space, the same business as you. If you have a problem, that you could reach out to or text. Like, for example, right now, if we have an issue or anything else, I can't just text another person in the pet space and say, hey, I'm dealing with this, or a dog boutique. It just doesn't exist, or a franchisor. So I think that's where I love the franchise network. You're going to have the same people like that. They're going to help you deal with the ups, the peaks, and the valleys. I think, and also the valleys. Like, hey, this is the challenges I'm having. How do I get through this? And the support system is so great, and the friendships that you build with other franchisees. I think there's so much benefit to that. But the ideal person would be a dog lover and the person that's really, really integrated in their community. I think that, having a challenge, taking an investor type of person and buying a territory, that's not our type of brand, where you're buying a McDonald's or a Taco Bell and you're developing 30 stores, or a quick service restaurant. That model doesn't work for us very well.
Okay, and then one thing that's unique, I think, I'm curious about your business, because you mentioned it's retail. But one thing that's a little different is traditional retail, like there's Black Friday because most of the year you're kind of operating in the red, and then you get a surge around the holidays. I'm curious because you have dogs, which people own year round and they love and they take care of year round. Is the revenue in your particular revenue model more evenly spaced across months than the traditional like November, December concentration?
Yeah, so our real estate site selection, the locations that we look at are your main on main where your daily drivers are. Think of your Sprouts, Whole Foods that might have a veterinarian there, even a groomer there, great synergy. Your cafe type of Starbucks is the world where people are going there on a daily basis, and you're going to see a lot of the same people. But also in the number one or two centers in that marketplace, an A or B center. We don't want to go to a place that's in a strip center that's run down where people don't go very often. They go there because they need to, right? It's a need. I need to get my taxes done. It's in the strip center. I got to shop it off. So that's one of the reasons why we're seeing consistency in our month over month. There is some dips, but that being said, that's where the membership comes in. What we've seen, 20% of our revenue comes from digital products, which is the memberships, which we've seen if a customer shops with us 7 times or more, they renew their membership at a 93% rate. And we have a churn of 7%. If they shop with us less, the churn increases to almost 25%. So one of the things we're seeing, people buying the dog food all the time, coming to events all the time. It might be even buying one treat a month and they're coming to an event. But as long as they're coming into the store, and that's what the membership model does, it acts as a retention tool. And it brings them into the store during those slow periods like you were mentioning. So.
And so our current location, our corporate location, it's in a mall. So of course, being in a mall, you have the ebbs and flows of traffic. On the weekends, we're really busy. During the holidays, we are really busy because everyone's doing some holiday shopping. But with future stores, we're going to be in that everyday drivers, that main on main, like Slava was mentioning, to help the franchisees drive that everyday traffic and build that community that we're talking about. Right now, we're driving people we're in wine country. We have people who visit us, the Winterbirds, as well as the day-to-day people who live in the area. So we're going more towards the everyday customer who will be there quite frequently, actually.
Selection of real estate is going to be really important. So I could see being next to a Starbucks or a veterinarian or a groomer, anything that deals with dogs or where somebody might take their dog regularly is probably pretty critical.
I mean, we're very community based, and that's where we want to focus our franchisee stores, and so they could build that community within their community. As far as where we are right now, it's very rare that someone comes to the mall every single day. But we are super grateful to have customers that visit us at least a few times a week. We have that pup bar feature, so they come to the store, they treat their dog to a free pup cup, and then we're always updating the photo booth, so they want to update the picture on the photo wall. So even though we're in a mall setting, we do drive our own traffic to the center, because people want to just do something with their dog. It's literally, they just want to spend time with their dog.
And so obviously some of your customer acquisition is people are walking by, you get foot traffic from the mall. What are your other customer sources for acquisition?
So we are heavy on referrals. So that is something that has built up over the last year and a half. So it's members referring their friends, their family. We've actually had one member refer 8 people within her family and network. So that's one channel. Another channel is through social media. So a lot of our members are marketing billboards. So they share it on social media, and then they see their followings will see Puptqe, and then we do run some ads local in the community. One thing that's definitely helped us, and it's a source that not many people talk about. It's not Instagram, it's not TikTok, but it's Nextdoor. So I'm not sure if you've heard of the platform Nextdoor, but it's a community-based platform, and everyone talks about what's happening in their community, events that are happening, just chiming in on everything. So we've been involved more recently on Nextdoor, just communicating what's happening in the area. That way you get the localized community, because you could also not only run ads in a certain area, but you could also just talk to the people that are around your location.
Well, and it goes back to one of the most powerful marketing tools is the customer, right? So it goes back to what we in the beginning of this conversation. If you provide a phenomenal service and people feel connected to the store, they feel their dog has a great time there, they're going to come back and tell 100 people. So the frequency increases. So the customer, we tell all our team members, will outsell us 100 times compared to, it doesn't matter what we tell them, doesn't matter how much we advertise. So I think it goes back to the very beginning. All those things are important. They're critical for any business for that matter. But it's so important is if you provide a great service and a great experience, you have a customer for life. And that's why we're customer obsessed with, we have in-store surveys that we provide to help us, right, to improve, and as well as Yelp and Google. These are all net promoter scores that we could use internally for ourselves. Not to say, look how good we are, but where can we improve and enhance, because we know how powerful it is. We had people booking parties say, hey, I saw you on Yelp, never been in the store. I saw you on Yelp, can I book a $300 birthday party? And they're coming from Los Angeles or Corona or whatever it might be, which is a testament how powerful it is of providing great service and being hospitable. And that's not by accident. It's easy to say that, but to execute that day in, day out does take a lot of fortitude, and it takes a lot of training to do that.
And most business owners, including ourselves early on, there's only so much capital you can spend towards running ads on Google, on Meta, on Instagram. And you're going to, of course, get outbeat by the people who spend more, right? Especially if you're on a limited budget as a small business. So finding ways to, whether that's referrals, our current customers, or customers that just literally walk in, always having them walk out with something. It doesn't have to be a coupon, but literally a piece of something that has that brand on it, which they could carry on wherever they go, and it's always thought of mine. And then also you could do guerrilla marketing. Sometimes the old school guerrilla marketing in your communities actually work.
Well, going to it's really interesting. So we always Google what our competitors are. I always look at the 1-star, 2-star reviews, not to see how bad they're doing, but what we could improve and what we can enhance. And what's really interesting, I see the companies that run Yelp ads or Google ads on things. It's always the 3.5 to 4-star reviews, and you go, and it's all about the service, how rude the people are in there and everything else. So I think it's really, really important. It's undervalued in what people understand. The holy grail of any business is retention. How can you increase lifetime value for that customer? Not just the dollars will come. The person to come back with you, they might not sign up for the membership or buy anything the first or second or third time, but how do you get them coming back and telling their friends? That's the holy grail. Period. It's not customer acquisition where you're seeing with online businesses now starting to die off, some of them, because they were fueled by venture capital dollars coming in direct to consumer, and they're all it was is customer acquisition. Hey, let's just outspend everybody, the brick and mortars, and now they're having issues because they have a lot of returns over 20%. They can't service that, but the money has dried up. So they don't have the advertising dollars now to drive through. So that's why retention is way more powerful than customer acquisition. Definitely you need to acquire customers to have retention. But I think one of the most, I always say this, you rather, and this is not my saying, it's the Airbnb founder, he said this, we rather have 100 people that love us and are fanatical about us than have 1 million people that just like us. And that's so true, because those 100 could turn into 1,000 so fast, so quick, overnight. And I think the retention and lifetime value is the most key and critical key performance indicators that every business owner needs to look at, not just talk about it and just, we just need to run more ads. Well, why are you running more ads? Like, I get you want to acquire a customer, but then you have customers coming out the back door, right? You acquire 10 and you lose 3, or whatever the formula is. That works in the short term, but long term, if you want to build a sustainable brand that sustains any storm, and you're going to have some storms. I don't care what business you are in. You're in a podcast business, retail, restaurant, you're going to have storms. And the retention side of it, that's how important it is, and lifetime value for each customer. That's why it's so important.
And then with a brick and mortar store like yours, how big is the staff for, like, if a franchisee wants to buy a location, how many employees would they need?
Yeah. So right now, we're running intentionally, we were fully engraved in the store, where we were there 3-4 times a week. Then we intentionally took a step back to be absentee owners. So we brought in a manager to run it. a 32 hours a week. And right now we have 3 part-time staff to fill in the hours because we're open 70 hours a week. So once the order count goes above 35 per day orders per day, there's 2 staff members on the floor. Below that, it's serviced with 1 part-time staff members, and they work 4-hour shifts. And we tell each franchisee we'd love for you to have 2 staff members on the floor all the time. That means you're doing well, right? But that's staffed. It's really straightforward. It's really easy. And the reason we do 4-hour shifts is anything above that, the decision making and the hospitality starts depleting a little bit. It just does. All of us get tired. So that's why we do 4-hour shifts.
5-hour shifts.
Or 5-hour shifts. I apologize. Yeah.
And you guys have some overlap so that you can do breaks?
Yes. So our manager overlaps with the team members. So she's there to do other things other than working the floor, because there's a lot of things outside of just working the retail floor. She has all the inventory, and then she has customer emails to respond to, as well as everything on the back end, managing online. So there's multiple things that are always happening within the store, but we do have the online business, the membership, as well as just the daily operations. And then on weekends, when it's sometimes events and certain events, we have 3 people on staff. And that's just because of the size of the events and being able to host. Someone's always serving the pup cups and making sure they're at the dog bar greeting people. Someone else is helping with activities. And then someone else is also just going around and mingling. So it also really depends on the size of the events that we put on as well.
And then, so you have the mandatory Sunday morning training. Is that for all the employees or just for the managers and owners?
It's for all the employees. So everyone comes in to right now it's our Puptqe Temecula location, and we meet on Sundays, and we have an hour and a half of just going over everything for the week, reviewing, and then training.
And that's not enough.
So how long does that shift last then for you on a Sunday?
For us, well, so our schedule is normally we do the training before the store opens. So our
Okay.
meets with us before the store opens, and then we have an hour and a half of training, and then someone shifts has a shift to open up the store and work with customers. That's when we're able to also work with customers as well and interact with our employees, just catch up, and then we'll also meet with our manager. So that's another time that we meet in person for manager training. So we're there pretty much like a whole work day, just on Sundays. But Sundays are our only day now. We went from 3 to 4 times a week in store to now just meeting with our teams once a week.
So I think it's important if it's a franchisee that's coming in, is to be more of a coach than a manager. Can you manage it? Yes, but I think it's more important to lead your community, lead your team, be a resource for them. And I think that's where the success happens with business owners, and we all do this. There's stuff that comes up like, I need to do this and I'm the only one that could do it. Trust me, there's times where I'm like, I know I could do this faster than them, maybe 5 times, but they have to learn, they have to experience it, they're going to get better at it. And I think too many times we all do it. It doesn't matter what size the organization is. It's so much easier to I'll just do it myself, or I don't have the patience to, or I need it done immediately. So going back, I think the training, we used to do it on Mondays. The reason we started doing it on Sundays is we wanted to make sure the week ahead we hit the ground running on Monday. The outlook, what is our one focus? What is our one goal? How are we going to track that KPI against it? How are we going to use our processes towards that? And everything gets funneled back to the core values and why we exist. So I think it was really important because we tried a different training on Mondays, Tuesdays, but we do training daily. We have our daily Zoom calls. That 9:45 to about 10, just an update. We might do some role play there, and then the what's not's another training mechanism that we spoke on earlier as well throughout the week.
So staffing part-time employees can be kind of difficult. So do you have a challenge that you require your part-time employees to be available for just a couple of hours every Sunday morning?
So it's actually mentioned during our interview process that we do have mandatory trainings on Sundays, which is a part of our employee schedule. And that's really when it's communicated, as well as some of the other events that happen throughout the week. But when we do hire seasonal, so outside of the part-time employees, we do have seasonal employees as well, and that's really just during the winter season where we hire seasonal employees. But it's communicated early on that Sundays are our training days.
And that might change. We don't know, right? We might get a suggestion from a franchisee. We might try something different. You're right. I think you made a good point. Sunday weekends might be reserved for something else, but that might change. It might change sooner than later for that training.
So they're part-time and Gen Z. So are you getting a lot of people that are in school and that's why they're doing part-time employee?
So actually, currently we only have one person in school. Our seasonal employees, they're sometimes in school because they have the winter off. So we see that more during the winter seasons. But at this point, no. So they do have. Do they have? I'm actually not sure if they have other. As far as them at Puptqe, they already have a set schedule. They're allocated a certain amount of hours. What our scheduling and what we communicate early on is that they do have, they know what events they're going to be working as well as what days they're going to be working. And if they do have any conflicts, they do let us know 30 days in advance. And that was one of the things that we had talked about earlier about putting those systems in place, is that our employees actually are very good at communicating and requesting that they need off, actually all the way till May, June, July. So we already have requests that far in advance.
And I think
but we're always working with them.
I think we set the expectation, the manager does, and we communicate that very clearly is, how important and why it's not just to call in, not necessarily sick. We understand emergencies happen, people get sick, people getting accidents, that's 100% understandable. It's unavoidable, it's life. But there is times where I think being accountable to one another and holding each other to that accountability, just like a team, right? If a goalie decides to take a play off and gets goals scored on, well, the team's going to lose and everyone's going to suffer and the fans are going to suffer, right? Because they're going to be upset. So I think it's the same thing when we approach it that way, and the manager sets, has a one-on-one and says, do you understand, are you in agreement with these expectations? What do you want to change in expectations? And then everyone signs off and then they agree to it. It becomes a bond, right? It becomes that thing where you don't want to let each other down. I think that's misunderstood with Gen Z. I really do. I think they do need guidelines, and I do think they need somebody to guide them. And too many times we're just like, oh, they're inconsistent or they're lazy, whatever we hear in the marketplace. But I think they do need guidelines, and they do need somebody to support them. And sometimes supporting them is setting clear guidelines and expectations and why those expectations are there. I think that's really missed in the marketplace sometimes.
And what's great is that they're always willing to want to pick up more hours. So let's just say we have an event or a birthday party that got booked. We need double coverage, sometimes triple coverage. So they're always willing to step up and work at these events. That's one thing they're so excited about. Everyone wants to work an event because of how fun they are, not only running them, but also interacting with the community. So as far as like the scheduling goes, I don't know if that's just how the marketplace is or if we got lucky with some of our Gen Z employees, but they're always able to move around and be flexible to, hey, I could work an extra shift or I could cover for someone, and they're willing to work with each other to trade shifts based on everyone's availability.
Yeah, because it's really challenging. I have a lot of part-time employees, and it can be really challenging in California. It's one of the challenges when somebody, calls out last minute, that can be challenging. And in California, you cannot require people to find someone to cover their shift. That's against the law. So it's everything kind of falls on the owner or manager of the business to find that kind of coverage. So I always love hearing about how other people navigate that.
Oh, don't get me wrong. There's been some times where people have called out or in the morning, and we've had to drive all the way from LA to Temecula. But that's our business, and that's why we're here to support in a different way too. But there's always a way to make it work. And sometimes, and unfortunately, in a couple cases, we just had to close the store completely for a couple hours because it didn't make sense.
But I think most people will support one another if they understand why there's the why behind it, why they're supporting one another, where, and they almost feel like guilty about it if they call in when they're not sick, or whatever it might be. And I think it's really, and that's not the intent of it, but I think from a hiring process, doesn't matter the age. I didn't even realize it was all Gen Z until we hired all of them, right? The age thing. And we had from Boomer, Millennial, Gen X, we had all of them. And at the end of the day, if you just look at it purely, what is this person, what is their talent? What is their one thing they're really, really good at? And forget about everything else. You could set the expectations and standards and everything else, and they could be engulfed in your culture. But if you could find that, it's really hard. And it is. To this day, sometimes it's really challenging. And then you could really press on that for them. They're going to get super excited to come into work. And they're not going to want to miss a shift.
Yeah. I think that's really, you have a lot of things. So you have like a very clear expectation, a high standard is set, you have guardrails, you have a mission statement, you have accountability to team members. So it sounds like you're really attacking it from several different angles, how to get that employee retention and good attendance.
It didn't happen overnight, I could tell you that. But just working, and like we talked about, just changing the processes, working together, getting feedback from different employees across the board. I think now we're in a place where everyone's really working together to help each other, but at the end of the day, to service the customer. And I think that's at the end of the day what they're so excited about. They're so excited to see dogs all and be able to work with dogs and people and serve pup cups and take a picture. And they, at the times where it is slow Monday through Monday, Tuesday, maybe in the mall, they're always itching to, okay, what can I do to make this better, to not only bring in the dogs, but also to be able to get this message out. And they find some creative ways. And that's what I really love about this generation, whether that's Gen Z or millennials, is that we're all able to be creative in our own ways and find a way to be proactive instead of reactive about a situation.
I think which is a nice segue into, you're heading into franchising. So a lot of times when there's like kind of the main franchise at top and they have pretty rigid systems in place, it sounds like you guys are pretty collaborative. So do you think that when you have franchisees that you're going to be open to people submitting maybe not that they can just implement it without checking with you first, but if they have ideas on, say, marketing that may or may not be innovative, is there going to be a process for people to submit those ideas and have like some bit of agency over the business they're running?
I think it's not just something we need to hear out. We would be extremely foolish if we didn't hear it out. And a lot of great franchise companies, I mean, the Big Mac was developed by a franchisee and introduced it to McDonald's. So, right, I think if we're not listening, it's not just we're saying that, but actually put it into practice, listening to franchise partner, listening to customers, and if there's viability to it, even trying it out. We're not going to say every franchisee, we're going to try everything out, but if it's a great idea and we're all in collaboration with it, from a marketing collateral to a marketing idea, to whatever may be a training mechanism or a training program, I think it's absolutely necessary. I think that's, I think a lot of franchisors are like, you're right, they're so rigid in their process, but you don't realize it, where it could come from anywhere. It could come from a janitor, it could come from in Tennessee, a retail employee that's working there, and the franchisee hears it and he tells us about it. You don't know where it's going to come from. I think just being open and open-minded, I think you have to be as a franchisor. That's just hands down.
And we're taking it from where we started too, right? And now we're a franchisor, but we were the original business owners, so we had to take, as we mentioned earlier, feedback and advice and a little bit of everything from everyone and just implementing it in various ways. But our franchisees are the forefront. So in their communities, they may know something different than what worked in a different community. Mm-hmm. Right? So just like us living in Los Angeles, our store is in Temecula. So that's already a different demographic that we weren't used to, or community. So building and getting feedback from that community played a huge role in where it's at now. Same thing that's going to happen if we build in Texas, or when we build in Texas, or when we build in Michigan. So there's multiple factors that play a role, and we're always open to the franchisees' collaboration and feedback.
Great. I really appreciate you giving me so much time to do this interview. So thank you so much for coming today. Um, I'm going to stop the recording, but I am going to ask you to not log off for just a second because everything's been recorded locally to your hard drive. It needs to get sucked up into the cloud. So if we could
Okay.
just hang on for 1 sec, I'm going to hit stop.